Seattle has been at the forefront of progressive minimum wage increases, phasing in a $15 an hour minimum wage for all employers by 2021. Now, the impacts of the change have been wide-ranging, and Seattle has given proponents of both sides of the issue evidence of pros and cons to hiking wages. What's happened in the wake of the increase is not so clear-cut. Kate Rogers went to Seattle. She got on the ground to find out more.
Seattle's minimum wage hikes made Chad MACKAY reevaluate his business model altogether. MACKAY has long paid above minimum wage in the front and back of house due to competition for talent in the Seattle market. But higher wages pressure businesses to increase further to compete.
We projected out the minimum wage increases, the loss of what would be considered a tip credit, realized that we'd be functionally bankrupt if you fast forwarded 7 years.
But instead of closing his doors, the CEO of Fire and Divine Hospitality nearly doubled in size, thanks to moving to a commission model, adding a 20% service charge for diners and paying his servers a commission based on sales. Today, the company has 600 employees and 12 locations. Front-of-house servers in Seattle can now pull in $70 or more an hour. Dishwashers make between $17 and $20 an hour.
Once we went to that model, I have never worried about minimum wage since. And I'm not sure there's a restaurateur in Washington State or in California or in New York that can say that. We left behind minimum wage as an issue for our company.
Eric Tanaka, partner at Tom Douglas Seattle Kitchen, says he's getting creative as the company looks to the future in the face of labor pressures and regulations like scheduling and paid leave. There's also a talent crunch being felt in varying ways across the group's 13 concepts, despite offering pay above the minimum wage.
It looks like for our company, we are definitely looking at models of restaurants that take less labor. It's hard because we're a scratch house, so it's hard to be handmade without the hands. We've had to re-engineer some of our menus so that they're smaller and less prep intensive.
Seattle's economy has been growing for years. Since 2015, the number of restaurants is up 5%, with annual sales increasing 20% over the same period. And in that time, Seattle's job growth has outpaced the state of Washington as a whole, but growth in weekly hours was slightly lower than the state's average. The city's population has increased by 13%, but so too has homelessness by 11%. For some workers, the wage hikes have been life-changing. When Martin Johnson first arrived in Seattle in 2015, he was camping along Lake Washington. Today, he works 3 minimum wage jobs: as a temporary cook working at the city's stadiums on game days, as a janitor at Costco, and as a handyman in his own business. Johnson, who advocated for higher pay at minimum wage jobs, now rents a monthly room outside of the city in Kent. An improvement, but living in the city is out of reach.
I mean, when you're down here, instead of being paid $9 an hour, you're getting $15 an hour to do the same work. You feel better about yourself. You feel appreciated. You're getting paid more. That way you can take care of your family more.
Beyond Seattle, the federal minimum wage still stands at $7.25 an hour, where it's been since 2009, despite efforts from congressional Democrats to hike pay to $15 an hour nationally. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that such a move could boost pay for as many as 27 million low-wage workers, but could also cause 1.3 million people to lose their jobs.
It's such a fantastic package, Kate. And I mean, I've been going to Seattle for years to cover Amazon. You see the effect that that company has had on the city. Property prices. Interesting. You talked to that gentleman who couldn't afford to live in the city. What are your thoughts if this was expanded nationally? I mean, as we were talking about, Washington's economy is doing so well, but it's not like that everywhere else.
It's such an interesting experiment, right? So Seattle is among the first places to do this. You see it in San Francisco, New York now, Washington, D.C. These are all really very expensive, very high cost of living areas for people. So we don't quite know what a $15 an hour wage would look like in the middle of the country where things aren't necessarily as expensive. And that's why even the CBO report is kind of mixed, right? It would give many millions of low-wage workers a big pay boost, but it could also reduce jobs. And a lot of the economic research in Seattle is also mixed. Some reports basically saw workers' pay increase if they were already working minimum wage jobs, but saw some hours cut. Others didn't see any negative impact. So we're still early on in this big experiment, but that's why so many people look to Seattle, because they were at the forefront.
Right, and that's why it's so important that you're doing this. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series.
Thank you so much.
Kate, thanks for that.